Hey Fiber friends, welcome to the For Knit's Sakes channel. My name is Allison and I am coming to you from El Paso, Texas, where I live with my husband Jonathan, my two sons Levi and Oliver, and our fur baby Lucy. Today is Friday, September the 21st of 2018, and it has been 3 weeks. Last time I podcasted was August the 29th, and I have a lot of knitting to share. If you are new to the channel, you're on my little corner of the internet where I chat about my knitting, my crochet, every once in a while some cross stitch and some sewing. If you're a returning viewer, thank you so much for coming back. I know my recordings recently have been a little bit sporadic, and last time I alluded to maybe possibly getting a job. Well, the word is I still haven't heard anything. It's been 3 weeks since that interview, and the school district hasn't called. But I did apply for a similar position at a different elementary school, and that application was due on the 20th of August, and I just got a call 2 days ago for an interview on Monday. So the school system just might be running a little slow. It's probably not a high priority position that they need to fill. So we'll just wait and see what happens, I guess. If you want to find me on social media, I'm on Ravelry and Instagram under For Knit Sakes, and we also have a Ravelry group attached to the podcast where you can find out about any knit-alongs or any other information that you might want to find out about the podcast. So we will jump straight into the writing prompt for today. And if I seem a little off, it's because I'm recording while my husband is home, and it makes me feel extremely awkward, even though he says, just go ahead and do it. I can hear him downstairs, and it's odd for me. Okay, so today is write about an extracurricular activity you did when you were growing up and how it affects or does not affect your life now. If you did not do any extracurricular activities, write about what you would have liked to have done. And what I did when I was in high school was marching band, and I did that for 4 years. If you haven't watched the podcast before, I do have a degree in music education. I don't currently use it because I was waiting for both of my kiddos to be in school full-time before I went back into the classroom. So I feel like that helped me decide that I wanted to go into music. And when I was in college, I actually found out that I enjoyed the elementary school crowd a little bit more. So that's the age group that I would prefer to teach versus doing middle school or high school. Especially, I don't want to do high school because if you teach band, you are required to basically do the marching band, which is a lot of extra work. You have to do the football games, the competitions, and parades. It's not something that I wanted to do, especially when you have a family. It's hard to find the time to do those things. So that's my 2 cents. I'm hopefully going to go back into the classroom when we move next year, but I just have to wait and see after I renew my license and apply for jobs and everything. So we'll dive straight into the knitting because I have 6 finished objects this week, and I will try not to speak a whole lot on all of them because it's a lot of socks and stockinette knitting, but we will start with my Rock Creek sweater by Caitlin Hunter. Now this yarn is from the Humulus sweater that I frogged back in August, and I decided I wanted a sweater that I actually wanted to wear, so I started the sleeves of this before I decided to frog my Humulus, and I liked the gauge I was getting, so I think last time I hadn't joined the whole sweater yet, but I have now finished it. I really like the yoke detail that's here, and you're also gonna have to excuse me because my camera and my computer are lagging behind because my computer, like I said last time, was stepped on by my youngest. You can kind of see it better back here with the stockinette. You have this raglan that is kind of like a ribbed, like a 2x1 rib over the course of, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 stitches. So you get this cool wide raglan setup when you join. It is a bottom-up sweater with a little bit of shaping on the back side. You can see that there's kind of a shirt tail hem on the back. Let me see. Yeah. And you can definitely see it on the front where the front half is longer than the bottom. There we go. Again, like I said, my my mirroring from my phone to my computer is lagging by about 5 seconds. So it's very frustrating to record today on a lot of other levels. So, but it was a very fun knit. I would not be able to do an all over seed stitch sweater again. This is a lot of seed stitch, a lot of knit one, purl one. And if it was all over the sweater, I probably would have quit about halfway through, but it just looks so nice. And the texture is really great. I was a little worried because when I first bound off the sweater, it was very, very form-fitting. But after blocking just seems to make everything better. It got a little bit longer, it got a little bit looser. Now it's still form-fitting compared to some of my other sweaters, but not so form-fitting that it's uncomfortable. And it does have a very wide neckline, so when I'm wearing it, I do have to wear kind of like a coordinating tank top, so my straps aren't kind of hanging out, but it works because I wear tank tops underneath everything anyways. Not because wool is itchy, but I just like the layering look that you get when you wear tank tops underneath other garments. So, and this was yarn hand dyed by me. It is Cherry Hill. Let me reach for a bear skein really quick. It's not a bright white blank yarn. So the bear yarn actually has this like yellow undertone. So when I first dyed it, I tried to do purple and somehow the purple split and I got this weird green pink yarn. And then I over dyed that with blue and got this. So I still have, excuse me for reaching off camera, I still have 2 things of yarn that I'm not quite sure what I'm gonna do with. This was what was yanked out of my Humula sweater. So I have to find something to do with. I think it's about 400 yards of worsted weight. So maybe a squishy cowl or something. I'll talk about that later, about all my potential works in progress. So I would definitely recommend this. Some of the newer stuff by Caitlin Hunter I'm not a huge fan of, only because it's not my style for the all over color work sweaters. I like the ones, I like the ones where it's just the yoke or like a little bit on the sleeves or a little bit of detail on the bottom, but the all over color work just isn't my jam. If you love it, that's fine, that's great, go for it. Also, a lot of her patterns have a lot of positive ease, and that only looks good on certain body types, and I am not one of them, unfortunately. Okay, next thing we're gonna talk about is my second knit stuffy. I showed you the book last time about how to knit these. It's a Amigurumi knits book. I'll put the information on the bottom of the screen. And my youngest son, Oliver, wanted a kraken, so a colossal squid. He's a big Wild Kratts fan. It's a show on PBS. They also did Zaboomafoo, I think, like 10 years ago or so, but he's really big into the aquatic episodes where they talk about, squids and octopus and all this other stuff. So he decided he wanted a one-eyed kraken, and so I made it. And this was some yarn that I had hanging out in my stash. I ran out of blue yarn, so on one of them I had to pull out some of the yarn from my sweater just to seam it up, and to the point I was taking bits of the blue yarn that I had overestimated how much I needed to sew up the tentacles, and I was spit splicing like 6-inch pieces together just to try to make it stretch, and I still ran out like at the very end. And I have zero clue what this red yarn is, but I think it worked out very well as far as the colors go. And this blue was some, I think, Lion brand fisherman's wool that I had in my stash that I dyed a while back when I was just kind of testing some new food gel dyes that I had gotten from Amazon. He said he only wanted one eye. The pattern calls for 2 eyes that you put on the side here. And the only difference I made in the pattern was you're supposed to knit this part of the squid, and then you're supposed to decrease and bind off up here in the mantle, and then you're supposed to pick these stitches up here and then knit up. But I decided I was just going to purl around instead. and then continue on the mantle, and I think it worked out well. You still get like the mantle is bigger than this part of the squid, and the directions were very clear on how to make it. And the only thing I did not like was just the monotony of making 8 tentacles, just because you can't make multiple at a time because they involve short rows. So you really can only make 1 tentacle at a time and then sew it up and then make another. And then you make 2 of these little grasping tentacles here. But it was a fun little knit. I might make some more out of the book. I'm not quite sure. My other son wants a kraken, so I probably will have to make him one as well. And I'll put the information on the screen for the book and the author, the creator of the book, as well as you can also find them in the show notes on the Ravelry group. Now I have a lot of socks to show, and one of them was one I actually finished yesterday, so we'll start with those. Are my Lorax socks, the ones that were my afterthought everything. I knit them from cuff to cuff, and yesterday I split the, no, was it yesterday or 2 days ago? Now I don't remember. I cut my tube in 2, and I knit my heels, and then I knit my toes. So my socks are now done, and the stripes are going in opposite directions. That doesn't bother me. I don't need matchy striping socks, so it's okay with me that they're coordinating. And if you want to see how I did everything, I did little mini snippets via my Instagram stories, and I added them to my highlights on my Instagram page, so you can find that and see how I did everything. So what I did is I split at the toes first, and I used waste yarn, or it was really crochet thread. I used waste thread to hold the stitches so I could cut it, and I did the heel first because I wanted to try on the sock to make sure I didn't need to add any length here, just in case my gauge just happened to be off. I'm usually pretty good about, I need 70 rows on the foot from my heel to my toes, and it worked out very well. Now if I do this again, I'll probably do toe to toe and pick up to do the cuffs instead. So I'll probably do this one more time. I'm not sure if it'll be a regular thing, but it was nice to just to be able to knit a really long tube and then cut it and finish off my socks versus having to stop and think about heels or stop and think about toes and everything. You just knit a really long tube, and I just counted my rows and left a row for the space between the 2 socks for where I cut it in 2, and then I was done. So these are finished, and they actually fit really well. The reason I would do toe to toe is because my cast on is much tighter than my bind off when it comes to the cuffs. So one of the socks fits a little tight around my calf, so I couldn't make them as long as I wanted to. So that would be my only change, and that would be why I would do toe to toe instead of cuff to cuff. The next finished object are my dad's Halloween / Christmas socks. I got this yarn when we did an auction with my knitting guild group, and it's a mystery yarn. It's probably Regia or Opal, and I sent a picture to my dad and asked him which yarn he wanted to choose for his socks, and this is what he chose. So I've just been knitting on these. My dad uses, I've been doing the same recipe. Sorry for the ding, my husband's making breakfast. And his recipe is a 68 stitch sock on a US 1 or a 2.25 millimeter needle. And I couldn't do a perfect 3x1 rib just because 68's not evenly divided by 4. Or is it? No, there was something that wasn't working out when I did it. So I did these toe up and an afterthought heel. And this heel, as well as my Lorax socks, I did the Smooth Operator sock heel instead. I can't give it away, but it's slightly different where you do the decreases. I'm not sure if I like it because it kind of leaves a hole. So I don't know. I'll have to show you guys the difference between this kind of heel and another heel next time I do it. So a very plain ribbed sock. I did finish both of them. So I might send them to him early so he can wear them for Halloween. And there was actually a really cool article on Facebook. I can link it in the description box below about how people that wear wild socks have like a better personality. So I think that's really cool. And I've actually woven in all the ends on this and they're ready to go. I just have to wash them and make sure I don't have any. There looks like there's a drop stitch there. And I'm gonna have to investigate that later because I've been finding drop stitches in random things as I've made them. So, oh well. It doesn't look like it, just looks like it was stretched out a little bit. And I also finished my niece's tube socks. I send my two nieces, I call them Wrap and Turn because their initials are W and T. I send them tube socks for Christmas, and my sister picked out this Cascade Sport Weight yarn. I think it's Cascade 150. It comes in a 150 gram ball. It's sport weight. I used size 1.5 needles, 2.5 millimeter needles, and 48 stitches, and I knit them toe up as well. And for this sock, I am doing a 3x1 rib all the way across. I'm not worrying about them matching. And I did a twisted rib up here up top. So just a plain and simple tube sock. There's no heels, so I don't have to worry about them growing out of them. They just get a little shorter as they grow. Excuse me, I had my coffee. And so I'm fully caffeinated, and I realize that I'm kind of racing through these right now. It's just because I have so much to share this week, which is why I need to record more often. Now, my last two finished objects are sock head hats that I made for my sons. They picked this yarn out in the spring so that I would have plenty of time to make it before it started getting cold. And today was kind of the first chilly day, and it was still like 62 degrees, and it's only because we got a whole bunch of rain yesterday, which was fabulous. And so it's a little bit cooler. I actually have the windows open for right now. They'll probably have to get closed soon just because it heats up quite quickly. It's going to be 82 today. So Levi chose this pumpkin yarn. This is Stroll by Knit Picks. And he didn't want a super slouchy hat. He wanted more of a beanie. So I ended his a little bit sooner. He still has enough that he can fold the brim just a little bit if he were to wear it. But he's not a big slouchy hat person. He wants a closer fitting hat. Oliver wanted a slouchy hat, so his isn't quite the full like 11 to 13 inches. This is a free pattern on Ravelry, but I did do the full 4 inches for the brim, so he can fold it up, and his is still pretty slouchy. And this is Midnight Heather, which is also Stroll from Knit Picks. And both of these hats took less than 50 grams. So this one took almost the full 50 grams by the end of it. And then I'm using the whatever's left of the hat yarn is going into their coordinating cowls. So that was a lot of finished objects. I've had a lot of waiting room knitting to do for recovering from my husband's surgery that happened on the 4th. So lots of physical therapy. He can drive himself now, so now I just get time at home to knit, which not as much because in the waiting room I don't get Wi-Fi, and so it's just news and my knitting for those couple of times that I went with my husband. So, but now he can drive himself, so I don't have that chunk of time to knit because when I'm at home I do chores. So now we'll move on to works in progress, which I don't have a lot of. I have my two sons' temperature blankets that I'm working on for their Christmas presents, and then I have Levi's sock head cowl that's going to coordinate with his hat, and a pair of socks for my other niece, which is in the same yarn. So I'll start with the sock for my other niece. Now I wanted them to be slightly different, so this one has a different textured pattern. It's still the same size US 1.5, but this is the blueberry waffle pattern, which is a free pattern on Ravelry. Still 48 stitches and same yarn. I'm going in the opposite direction as the other sock, so my sister probably won't notice, but like as knitters you think about that stuff. So the pattern's just going in the opposite direction, is it? Yeah, okay, because the blue and the green are switched. But they're very similar, so it's pretty hard to even tell the difference. But I just wanted the socks to be slightly different, so that's why I did a different textured pattern on this sock as well. So I just knit on those during soccer, or while we're watching Anthony Bourdain parts unknown because it's only available until October 1st. And so we have 2 seasons left. And so it's 16 episodes that we have to finish. And so we're going to get it done. The next work in progress is my son's sockhead cowl. So he picked this Knit Picks hand-painted yarn called Sunset. And I striped in a little bit of his hat yarn. And the hat yarn, which is the pumpkin colorway, matches pretty well with some of the shades in the skein. So I can show you the two together. They're similar enough that the striping is it's not super noticeable, but just enough that it's going to give a little bit of extra length to the cowl instead of, you know, just knitting until it's done. So I weighed my yarn after I was done with the striping, and I've used about 20 grams of the Sunset yarn. So I'm going to knit until I have about 25 grams left and then finish out the rest. Because it would be nice to have some of this yarn to go into my Cozy Memories blanket behind me, which I have grossly neglected and only work on maybe once a week while I'm up here in the loft area. But only do it when I can. It's not a good travel project anymore because it's so big. Now my temperature blanket. I've started both of the blankets now. I had started Oliver's last time, and I think I shared that I was frogging Levi's because the crochet was taking too long. It was too stiff and it was going to end up way too long. Like the row gauge was just way too big. It was going to be like a 6.5 foot long blanket, and my kids obviously aren't 6.5 feet tall. So I think I've shared before, I have already done the work. I use like wonderground.com to find the highs for where we were living for the first year that my sons were alive. And I picked how many colors? 2, 4, 6, 8 colors to distribute from purple to red. This is Levi's. I keep track of how many days I've done. So as you can see, Levi's is very red, yellow, orange heavy, and then Oliver's is very blue, purple, and yellow, green too. So my key's up here on the top right here, you can see. So I cross off the days as I knit them. I will just show them really quick. They are just plain garter stitch blankets on US 9s. And Levi has a lot of bits and pieces. I'm still trying to figure out how I'm going to do the fringe, if I'm going to knot it and weave them in. I'm just worried it's going to make a very thick blanket on the outside. So there's really no right side and wrong side because I'm switching yarns per row. So sometimes it looks like one side's the right side and the other side's the wrong side. The nice thing is I took all of the bits and pieces that I had ripped out from Levi's blanket and I weighed them to figure out if I had done one row. And so this is all my 1 row bag. But since his yarn, I've switched it to the knitting blanket, I use half as much yarn per row from my crochet blankets. So all I have to do is I'm redoing the first 3 months anyways because I had to rip it out. I just have to pull out, whenever I've done 1 row, I pull out a 1 row ball and I knit across. And then usually from 1 row, I can get 2 rows out of it now. Does that make sense? Like knitting math, right? I'm a little farther along on Oliver's blanket than Levi's. I'm probably about 3 months in, I think, to Oliver's blanket. And so I'm just now getting into, what month am I in for Oliver? I'm getting into the month of April for Oliver. So he was born in November, so I've done a lot of the winter months, and he has a lot of dark blues and purples and that teal. So it's just 150 stitches on US 9s, which is, what's the millimeter? 5.5 millimeter needles. And I'm using all Michael's box store yarn. So Karen Simply Soft, Red Heart Soft, and Loops and Threads Soft and Shiny, I think. So I think whatever's left over, I'm gonna make a blanket for Project Linus and donate that. But I have to finish the blankets first. I still have to keep up with about 6 rows a day in order to finish by Christmas. If I do 8 to 10 rows a day, I'll finish about a month before Christmas. which would be ideal since I still don't know what to do with all the fringe on the outside. If you have any suggestions, put those in the comments below, because I don't want the outsides of the blanket to be really stiff from having to weave in all the ends, but I don't know if I want the fringe just hanging out on the outside of the blankets. I don't know. So those are all the works in progress. I've been trying to get things off the needles and not start new things because my queue is actually a little bit out of control. And we'll talk about like my future knitting plans. I do have a few other things that I have to cast on first, like my mom's shawl. I'm knitting her a Pure Joy by Joji Locatelli in some stroll that I have left over from my pavement sweater. It's on a very pretty cake. It's gotten a little messy. And I picked up some Premier yarns by Deborah Norville. This is a superwash merino rayon made from bamboo and nylon in this like off-white color. I couldn't find an off-white online, and this is the closest thing that I could get color-wise that would go with this. So the purple yarn is going to be the first couple of wedges, and then the white's going to be the last wedge at the bottom. So I have that ready to go. I even have the needles in the bag. My Lone Larch Designs bag that I got from Becky from Stringing It Together podcast, who lives in Germany. And then I have to cast on Oliver's sockhead cowl when I'm done with Levi's. And then after that, I took all of my potential projects and I wrote them on pieces of paper, and I made myself like a bingo jar. So all of my potential projects are sitting here in my sheep yarn bowl. I think I had gotten up to like 15 or 16 with yarn ready to go. And I'm really bad about making decisions, so I figured if I put them all in here, I don't get to choose, or I don't have to hem and haw over what I'm gonna cast on next. I just pick out my next project from this bowl. So keep a lookout on Instagram. I'll always post whenever I get to picking out, but I'm gonna finish some of the Christmas projects and ones for the family first before I start digging into that. Now, let's talk about some things that were gifted to me or things that I have bought, and we'll start with a bag. Now, I had been not lusting over, but I found somebody had posted about these bags from Twig and Horn, and they're these huge tote bags that are also meant to be used as project bags. They're very nice, but they're also very spendy. They have a canvas version, a waxed canvas version, and a wool version. And I wanted the canvas version, but they were always out of stock. And I'm kind of impatient as far as that's concerned. And I also couldn't justify spending the $135 on the bag when I didn't know if I would like it. The wool bag is $180, and I think the waxed canvas is $160 or $165. I'll put a link in the description box below, so if you want to go check them out. They're very nice bags. I'm sure they're made very well. They have mostly very good reviews as far as their durability and their use. But again, I just couldn't justify spending that much money on a bag. So I used my Googling skills and I went to go look for tote bags. And I tried to not impulse buy, so I did research, I checked reviews. I even tried doing used shopping via Poshmark or other websites like that, and I had gotten it down to these two bags. One was on Poshmark and one was on Amazon. The one on Poshmark isn't sold anymore, but I was able to find it on Nordstrom's website, and the reviews for durability over a long period of time weren't that great. It was falling apart, the straps were ripping out of the fabric, or the zippers were breaking. And so I did some more research on the bag on Amazon, and it's actually a very similar style size-wise, and kind of a bag to the one for Twig and Horn, so I thought it was going to fit my needs the way I wanted them to, and it does. It came yesterday, and I've already filled it up. It's going to be my new purse, but I was having issues. I couldn't fit my project bag, my knitting, in my purse, so I was using a carabiner hook to hook my bag on, so it was kind of like kept bumping around on my knee. Whenever we park at the hospital, it's usually a pretty far walk because there's so many people there. Finding parking that's close to the hospital is pretty impossible, and so I was walking around with this thing like attached to my bag all the time, and I wasn't enjoying it. So I got this bag from Amazon. It is from Taste Drink Go. Show you the tags. I haven't taken it off yet. It's technically meant to be a carry-on bag when you're flying, but as a mom and I'm carrying a lot of my kids' stuff, that stuff adds up very quickly, including water bottles. So this bag size is very similar to the one for Twig and Horn. It's made out of canvas. It's very durable, not super thick, but not flimsy. It holds its shape. This is supposed to be an ID holder, but I don't understand why anybody would want their ID just hanging out for people to possibly take. So I'm going to use it as a pen holder. It has these two side pockets to hold skinny water bottles. It's not going to hold thick water bottles, but it'll hold skinny ones. And you have shoulder handles here, but it also has this crossbody strap here. Now on the inside, it is a zippered bag, but it also has this magnetic button that I can't get to attach right now here on the front. So you can just secure it just with that little leather strap, or you can zip it. There are no other exterior pockets, and that's kind of my one big complaint about it. But I also ordered this bag because I had some Amazon credit, and so I didn't technically pay full price because I had returned some things. You also get a second bag with this purse, and it's very sizable, and I have all of my emergency things. So I have Band-Aids, Neosporin, tissues, Lysol, all those mom things in this bag right here. So I could potentially just leave this in the car whenever we're going somewhere. Lotion, Germex, wipes. My friends make fun of me, but when their kids get scrapes and I have Neosporin and Band-Aids on hand, they're not complaining then. So this one has like a little outside zipper pouch, and then this backside Velcro pouch too that you can put things in. So added bonus. And then on the inside, it is huge, lots of space. It's kind of hard to show online or on the camera, but it has a laptop pouch here. That I don't have a working laptop, but I'm looking into possibly purchasing a Chromebook to use. But it has plenty of space for me to put all of my stuff. I have space for my gum, my snacks. It's my kids' snacks. It's not really snacks for me. And then my chapstick and all that other stuff. There's these two little slide pockets on the inside. But the corporation also says on the label, it says each sale goes towards building a water well for a community in need. And they're designed in Texas. They are made in China though. But I mean, what's not made in China these days, to be honest? You can't win every single battle, but I think this is a pretty comparable bag to the Twig and Horn ones, and I'll keep you guys posted as to how it holds up, because this is going to be my everyday purse to and from soccer and other things. So, and then now let's get into what was given to me by my friend Ellen at my most recent Knitting Guild meeting. It's so pretty. I don't know if I'm ever actually going to use any stitches from this book, but holy moly, are these stitches bananas. I'll just flash you like one of the charts really quick. You can't really do much with that. Wow. They're so intricate and detailed and pretty, and kind of terrifying to think like people knit these swatches and they made these charts, and the whole symbol and how to knit it is slightly confusing, but they're really pretty and they're nice to look at. So anything, it's going to be like a coffee table book, just because it's nice to look at. It's like the same with my Melanie Berg shawls book that I purchased. Sorry. I thought I was caffeinated enough and I just can't use words properly today. It's just really nice to look at sometimes. I don't own a lot of knitting books, but the ones I do own are pretty to look at and have some pretty good information in it. It all only takes up one shelf in the bookcase downstairs. So thank you, Ellen, again. She told me I wasn't allowed to say no, and she said that I could take it home. And of course, the first thing I was like, no, I can't do that. She's like, I told you you couldn't say that. So Thank you, Ellen, if you're watching. I really appreciate it. And I really appreciate all of my knitting family that I have gotten to know over the last couple years. Really just like in the last year or two since I started the podcast and joined the Knitting Guild. Like, I've met so many wonderful, fantastic people in this community. And I can't thank you guys enough. So, a little tear. I've also done some dyeing recently. I've had this alpaca yarn sitting in my stash for quite a while, and I had two shades. One was a very bright pink, and the other was like a cornflower blue color. And I wasn't reaching for them just because they were just solids, and I don't knit much in solids. I like something that's more tonal. As you can see, like up above me, everything up here is a tonal. Like the only one here is these solids right here. So what I did is I pulled out my dye pot and I pulled out my food coloring, and I found some ways to add some dimension to them. So this is 100% baby alpaca. This is alpaca with a twist, baby alpaca yarns. And the cornflower blue, I did an 80-20, maybe more like 90-10 mix of a royal blue and black. And so I got this really pretty, I'm not really quite sure what color to call this. It's kind of similar to my sweater that I did, just a little bit darker, like dyeing on a bare base versus a blue base. So this one I'm very happy with. It's not a huge change, but enough that I think I'm gonna enjoy knitting with it. And the pink, I did mainly black with a splash of blue and red. And I ended up with this very nice cranberry color. So I just dyed all of these in a very shallow pot on my stovetop. You can see it's not solid, but it's not variegated either. And I really like how it turned out. So I'm not really quite sure what I'm gonna make with it. I think I'm going to give my friend Carrie a choice, and I'm gonna knit her something. She's been very helpful since we moved here, about watching our kids when we were moving and watching our dog whenever we really needed it. So I think I owe her a little bit of hand knit wares. I hear water and I don't know where it's coming from. I think our neighbors behind us are watering their lawn. This is what happens when you have your windows open. So I think that's all of the knitting that I can share for today. Yeah, I think I've shared all the stuff that I'm doing right now, and all the dyeing that I've done, and my bingo bowl for my future works in progress. So I'll chat a little bit about our lives, and then I will let you guys go and hopefully see you guys in the next 2 weeks. So if you have only come for the knitting content, thank you so much for stopping by. Like and subscribe if you like what you see, and I will see you guys next time. And if you're here for some life stuff, grab your knitting and have a seat. So we've been busy the last 3 weeks. My husband had knee surgery. He had something called PVNS, and you can just Google PVNS joints and you'll find out it's a very rare condition where these benign tumors basically start attacking your joints. It's very, it's common in knees and hips, and the doctors, when they went in, his 1-hour surgery turned into a 3-hour surgery, because when they went in, they not only found the tumor that was in the MRI pictures, but they found a lot more surrounding the rest of his knee. So they went in and took out all that they can. So they tried to do that arthroscopically, so they're not cutting him open to get everything out, because obviously it would have been a longer recovery time, and it's about 75% successful that it won't come back. So he had to stay the night at the hospital, and then he came home, and I've been having to take care of him. And he has this really cool ice machine where he has like this tub of water that he mixes with a whole bunch of ice, which we just use like Gatorade bottles with, we freeze those and then we put those in the container and just trade them out as needed. And it connects to this pad that he has wrapped around his leg, and it circulates the freezing water in it to keep his leg cold. So you don't have to worry about ice packs breaking or melting and like getting things wet. It's a really cool apparatus, and you just plug it into the wall and he just attaches it to its knee, and it helps with the swelling. It's really cool. And so he's had physical therapy, follow-ups with ortho, and I had to drive him for the first couple weeks. And so a lot of waiting room knitting because there is no Wi-Fi when you're inside, or no phone signal. You're supposed to get free Wi-Fi, but it doesn't work. You're connected to it, but you can't send messages. You can't do anything. So I don't understand why they offer that for free when there's no way that it works. So I got a lot of knitting done on the hats and everything during that time. But he's good now. He's walking around. He's recovering really well. And his follow-up with ortho to figure out the whole Army side of his, like the physical part of taking his tests and everything. See what he would need as far as, it's called a profile if you're limited for certain things. So he might be on a profile for a while and all that other stuff. So, and then the boys are in school. If you remember last time, I have taken care of my speeding ticket. I went to the court system and applied for the defensive driving. So I just have to take the test and turn everything in by December. Thankfully it's online, so I just have to find the chunks of time to do the online portions of it. This water sound, somebody has to be watering their grass. It's just driving me bananas that I can't see it. Because it sounds like it's directly behind me, but I have a window on each side open right now. And it has to be our neighbors behind us because they have grass and they water it during the summer. So, sorry. Tangent. Squirrel. So I took care of that and I just have to finish it. And I was worrying way too much about it. And because I did the defensive driving, the ticket wasn't as expensive, but still $140 later, plus the $25 to take the defensive driving. I would have rather had that money to go towards something else. But whatever. Today was picture day for Oliver, so he got all dressed up in his little button-down shirt. If you've seen pictures he's got a pretty impressive cowlick on his head, and so trying to get that to stick down was interesting. And then when he got on the bus, he took his sunglasses and pushed them up into his hair. So I'm hoping his teacher can get it to lie somewhat flat for his photos. If not, that's what our kid looks like on a daily basis. It's not going to be a big deal. And then soccer is going really well. The kids are really enjoying it. They get very tired. It's a lot of running. It's a big commitment. So they're having to get used to that because we follow through on these things. But it's been a much better experience for them versus the baseball experience that we had in the spring. So we can at least be happy about that. And Oliver has his first game tomorrow, and Levi has his second game tomorrow. And that's what our Saturday mornings consist of now. We are soccer parents. And other than just doing appointments and everything else is quite boring. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the podcast, I still haven't heard back about the job interview that I did 3 weeks ago now. But I have an interview for a different school that's also up here in the Northeast on Monday afternoon. So maybe I'll hear something. Again, it's not a huge total loss if I don't get a job. Just having that outside stimulation of doing something would be really nice. But if not, I will hopefully get a job next year. I can't think of anything else to chat about. We're fairly boring people, and after what's happened in our past, I will take boring over eventful and scary and terrifying any day. So hopefully I'll see you guys within the next 2 weeks, not 3 weeks like this last time, and keep your needles moving, and I hope a lot of you are enjoying colder weather. We're still going to be in the 80s for quite a while. And hopefully by Halloween it'll be nice and cool during the day, back to sweater weather. I wore my sweater yesterday, but I had to change halfway through the day because I was sweating, which is the normal here for Texas. And next year I'll probably be complaining about how cold it is, but hopefully not. That's why I knit. That's why we have nice and warm and cozy things to wear, right? So I'll see you guys soon. I'll stop chatting and let you guys get on about your day. And like I said before, keep your needles moving, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye.